This ice cream company is a 40-year-old family business that makes 300 crore every year and has disrupted India's 30,000 crore ice cream market. But here's the kicker. Naturals has done this without raising a single rupee of funding and by spending less than 1% in marketing and by being a profitable dhandha since day one. So in a market dominated by giants like Vadilal, Mother Dairy and Quality Walls, this company has created a cult-like following by bringing a revolution of fruit ice creams in India. But how did son of a fruit vendor created a generational company in such a competitive space? In this video, we break down the strategies and insights behind natural ice cream success. Now, before we begin, welcome to GrowthX. We are a community of 4,000 plus members from India's top technology companies. Also, we are glad to be part of the 01 network by Zerodha. Now, let's get back to the episode. Let's start with some context. This story goes back to 1980s and it begins with Raghunandan Srinivas Kamath, a man who quite literally came from nothing. Born in a small village called Mulki in Karnataka. His father was a fruit vendor. He had no fancy education. In fact, he dropped out of school and started working at a young age in his brother's small eatery business, a job that gave him his first tiny exposure to the world of food businesses. And it was finally in 1984 when he opened the first store of naturals at Juhu, Mumbai, a 200 square foot shop that would go on to become a legendary Indian brand that would have roughly 150 stores in the country. Now, coming to the first insight that naturals cracked, which was identifying the white space in the ice cream market. It's important to understand the time we are talking about. India was in a very different stage. Our per capita income was just $300 and we were just about to open the economy in 1991. And if you think about it, even after 3 decades, the naturals brand has stayed relevant. This is because of identifying the perfect white space. Just look at the Indian ice cream market over the last 40 years. It's still being dominated by 4 brands, right? They together have a 70 to 80% market share, with Amul alone leading the pack with 40% market share. Now, there was this one gap that R.S. Kamath saw. He noticed there were only 3 types of ice creams being sold. Western flavors like vanilla and chocolate, in cones and cups of course, desi options like Kesar Pista, Kulfi, Gola, and some basic fruit flavored ones like mango bars or cups. But no one, literally no one, was making ice creams from actual fruits. That's exactly what R.S. Kamath wanted to do. He introduced high quality ice creams made not with artificial flavors, but with real fruits. On top of that, he picked unconventional fruits like sitafal, coconut, and even muskmelon, along of course with the usual ones. The proposition of naturals was very simple. Use only 3 ingredients: milk, sugar, and fruit. That's it. In fact, this is the reason why you must have noticed that their ice creams do not have a strong popping color like the other ice creams, because they don't add any artificial fruit color. And trust me, it was a bold move, especially since very few brands were doing artisanal ice cream, except maybe Apsara and Gyani's. But you might ask, what are artisanal ice creams anyway? Look, artisanal ice creams are made up in small batches with no preservative or artificial colors and with pure natural ingredients. Also, you'd be surprised to know that a lot of what we call ice cream in India is technically frozen dessert. But you might think, what's the difference? As per FSSAI, if a product uses fat from milk sources, it's real ice cream. But if it uses vegetable fat like palm oil, it's a frozen dessert. Now, frozen desserts are relatively unhealthy as they have palm oil along with other stuff. But on the face value, both ice cream and dessert look the same. And naturals from the very start stuck to making real ice creams. Now let's talk about the next insight of how naturals cracked the premiumness with pricing. Before we get there, I want to get Udayan, the co-founder at GrowthX, to join me on this.
Back in 2019, when Udayan and I were leading a large part of growth at Razorpay and Crore, we noticed one thing. Every time we were solving a growth problem, it was nearly impossible to find people who could help us with specific strategies to solve these problems. And that's been the core insight on why we built the Advanced Growth Strategy program at GrowthX. See, this 4-week program will teach you the A
to Z of growth. From learning how do you acquire customers, how do you onboard them, how do you get them to buy again and again, and most importantly, how do you make money while doing all of this? Over 4,000 people from companies like Coca-Cola, Slack, Adobe, Spotify, TikTok, Canva, Nike, and Apple have used strategies from this program to solve revenue growth in their roles.
The deadline to apply for the live learning program ends on 19th of April. You can check more from the link in the description.
Alright, enough's been said. Let's get back to the video.
Look, R.S. Kamath wanted to build a brand for Bharat, and he made sure that this brand is affordable for the regular Indian. Just look at this price pyramid that we made for Indian ice cream brands. Now, as you can see, there are different brands cracking different price points. There are brands in 50 rupees point, there are brands at 50 to 100, and there are of course a bunch of brands in 100 plus rupee price point. And Naturals has smartly entered the middle of the pyramid for one simple reason. It's the sweet spot at which customers can pay a slight premium over their regular Amuls and the mother dairies of the world. And they will not overthink about this price difference. And by the way, in the long run, this has worked out for Naturals because the Indian market has been booming. It is currently at 30,000 crore and is expected to cross 50,000 crores by 2028 with annual per capita consumption of just 1.6 liters of ice cream. India lags behind countries like China, which is at 4.3 liters, the US, which is at 20 liters. So the runway we have is insane. And Naturals, despite being affordable, created a perception of being premium. But how? Well, first was obviously their ice cream quality, but the second was interesting and something that is often overlooked was their smart offline first strategy. They went bullish on physical stores, a very old school hook honestly, that still builds trust with the mass market Indian customers. Naturals recreated the classic ice cream parlor vibe that Baskin-Robbins introduced a few years ago. Their outlets are spacious enough for people to walk in, sample a few flavors, and just chill with the family or friends after a quick walk. And that's the experience that made the difference. And I think that's what set them apart from the other mass market ice cream brands. Now, while this sounds good on the front end, a lot of great things were happening at the back end for Naturals. Now, that brings me to the third insight. How this brand's rigidness became a secret weapon. A masterstroke why this brand spends less than 1% on marketing when its competitors are spending up to 10%. Here's how it played out. Early on, Naturals faced a big challenge. They had these flavors which were deseeding fruits like the sitafal and the jackfruit. Also, they needed all these fruits at scale, right? They needed volumes. But to get the pulp of these fruits, you have to do the entire process by hands. Now, to solve this, Naturals took a very bold call and built its own machines. Yes, they built their own machines. It was a very high effort, high cost move that meant lower short-term profits. But it gave Naturals full control over the quality of the ice cream. This long-term thinking became their moat. And it didn't stop there. They have worked with the same fruit suppliers and the same main factory for over 40 consecutive years. This has helped them maintain consistency and also build trust in the sourcing process. Despite profitable growth, they have deliberately avoided chasing trends or launching multiple categories. No new sizes, no fancy forms, no protein, no vegan hype, right? They have stuck to what they know the best. Old school fruit-based ice creams made exceptionally well. Naturals never tried to be a new gen brand, which worked out beautifully for them because they're a brand for families. Naturals has never ever raised a single rupee of external funding. No VCs, no private equity, nothing. The brand has been run like a classic family dhandha with full control, zero dilution, and a long-term vision. In fact, R.S. Kamath's son, Siddhant, has said that they are not interested in doing an IPO. Now, this ice cream is telling us so many things. So let's understand what all we have understood from Naturals. Naturals found a white space and stuck to that white space of fruit-based ice creams. That insight has scaled for the last 40 years. Second, Naturals became a mass premium brand by going bullish on offline parlors that offered a trusted family-first experience. And most importantly, Naturals took bold long-term bets like building their own custom machines, avoiding trends, and never raising a single rupee of funding. Now, if you like this episode, you will definitely love the episode that we did last week on how JioHotstar is disrupting India's OTT marketplace. See you in the next one.